Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. We're going to continue on with the series of Scottish beer reviews that I've been doing for you. So this is video number 19 in the series of Scottish Beer Month that I've been doing. And for this one we're going to return to the Black Isle Peninsula just to the north of Inverness. But this time we are going to go to the second brewery that little peninsula is home to. And this is a brewery who are rated very, very highly amongst a lot of craft beer lovers in Scotland. So we're going to go to Cromarty Brewing Company and have a taste of their Ghost Town beer, which was apparently their autumn seasonal one. It's a very nice porter, this beer, so I'm looking forward to trying this one. This is my first encounter with one of their darker beers. Their pale ales that they do are absolutely beautiful, so I'm really interested to see how their kind of brewing style goes when it comes to their darker beers. But as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. Quite an interesting one this, but if you don't want to stick with me for that, feel free to fast forward a few minutes into the video and you will get straight to the tasting section. The brewery website is in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews from the Cromarty Brewery, and I will be adding to those in the fairly near future, I would think. So, to get on to the history of this brewery, as I mentioned to you, the Cromarty Brewery is yet another one of the kind of very small Scottish breweries that have appeared in the last few years with the sort of boom that we've had in Scottish craft beer brewing. And this one is located about 20 miles away from Inverness on the small peninsula known as the Black Isle. And this particular brewery is located at the far end of the peninsula, which is also home to the Black Isle Brewery, who are in the southern part of the peninsula. But apparently the small-scale home brewing was very popular in Cromarty during the 17th century, and in this period a lot of the grain grown on local farms would be malted to be used in ale, but the introduction of the London porters led to large amounts of the local grain being exported down to England, which put a bit of a strain on local landowners who were encouraged to form their own breweries at the time, but obviously with that London porter influence they didn't have the materials to do it a lot of the time. But the original Cromarty Brewery was established by George and Alexander Ross in the year 1790, and it's located next to a burn on the eastern extremity of Cromarty Village at the corner of Miller Road and Burnside Place. You can still go and see this building apparently, but it was quite a large brewery considering the times, and it's thought that the port of Cromarty was used to export the beer in addition to the cereals that the Black Isle was renowned for. And this brewery apparently hit financial difficulties in the 1820s with several whisky distilleries. This was when several whisky distilleries were opening up on the Black Isle, and the brewery ceased operations in 1850s. One of the last records about this brewery was in fact that some people had stolen the lead from the pipes in this one, which was quite an unusual record to actually read about this. But to move on to the modern brewery itself, the Cromarty Brewing Company is a family run business that consists of Craig, Chap and Jenny Middleton, and Craig is a graduate of the famous brewing programme at Heriot-Watt University, which has produced a number of quite prominent brewers in craft beer companies today. This includes Einstök in Iceland and quite a few others around Scotland these days actually. But while studying at Heriot-Watt, Craig had been well known to produce beer in his student halls and flat basements, and after he completed his degree he worked for a period of time at Odell's Brewery in Colorado and also the Cairngorm Brewery in Aviemore. Two very, very good breweries, I should say. But while working in these breweries, Craig decided that he wanted to put his own beer on the market, and he applied for grants and bank loans and was eventually able to finance the funding of the Cromarty Brewing Company. But Craig's dad Chap is in the brewery, and he's the brewery engineer, and he's quite involved with the maintenance of the brewing equipment, while his mum Jenny deals largely with the sort of admin side of things. But work on the brewery building commenced in spring 2011, and this hectic year kind of culminated with the production of the first casks of beer, which were produced on the 19th of December 2011, just in time for Christmas. And if you're interested in keeping with it up to date with the kind of latest goings on at the brewery, you can check out the brewery website, which is in the video description for you below. And they do have a blog there, and obviously you can follow them on Facebook and Twitter and things like that and keep up to date on how the brewery is doing. So, to list a few of the other beers you can get from these guys, you get the Brewed Awakening, which is the purple labelled one. This is a coffee infused stout. You get Red Rocker, which is a red rye hoppy extravaganza beer as they describe it. You get Hit the Lip, which is a kind of green labelled one. This is the they call it Fruity Hoppy Heaven, this one. You get Happy Chappy, which is the blue labelled one, a really nice pale ale. And you also get the Rogue Wave, which is that's another very, very nice one. I think that's the orange labelled one, or maybe I've got that mixed up the other way. I think Happy Chappy is perhaps the orange one, and then Rogue Wave is the blue one. The Pale Ales, as I mentioned to you at the start of this video from Cromarty, absolutely beautiful beers, and those are the ones that you should really check out first. And as I said, this is my first encounter with one of their darker beers, so I'm really interested to see how this this turns out. And they also had their second anniversary ale, which was a really nice barley wine ale, so definitely check that out if you get the chance. But let's move on to the tasting of this guy itself. This one is a 5.8% porter beer, meant to be very, very nice. It's got very good ratings on Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, and it's aged in Jack Daniel's cask, and they use local raspberries in it as well, which is quite cool. So as you can see, this is the kind of typical Cromarty Brewing artwork. It's a slightly different colour than the other ones. This is a nice dark grey. This is the Cromarty bottle cap that's on this. It's cool because this brewery, despite being very, very new, do have their own bottle caps, and that's one thing I always like to see is little breweries with their own bottle caps. I think it's quite an expensive thing to do, but it's a little cool kind of trinket that you can keep with this beer. So let's get it out and get on with the tasting here. So this is my first dark beer from the Cromarty Brewing Company in Cromarty Village on the Black Isle in the Highlands. So here we go. As you can see, there was quite a nice sort of smoky opening to this one. I'll just leave a little bit of a gap at the top so we can sugar it about quite nicely and get some more of the aromas. Just put it back there. So as you can see, if I bring up the light, you can see this. It's poured a nice definite black colour there, a nice rosewoody, very, well, some people would describe it as mahogany, but I would always say mahogany is lighter than that. It's a nice rosewood colour, that one, or ebony wood colour. Very, very beautiful looking beer. There's a nice solid finger and a half there of a beige kind of tanny head on it. If I hold it up to the light up here, there is just a little tiny hint of a ruby tinge around the edge, but not very much at all. And there is a nice little bit, just a tiny, tiny little bit of carbonation going up to the underside of the head on this one. So in terms of the aroma, it's very, very fruity actually, which is quite unusual. You're getting a lot of the kind of fruits coming out on this one, which is, for a porter, for that to be the most prominent component of the aroma is very unusual. But when it's barrel aged with raspberries, that's kind of something you would obviously expect. But there is a lot of berries in there. You're having to sugar it up a little bit more to kind of get the coffee. There's definitely a roasted coffee element to this one, but there's a lot of fruit in this one. It's definitely got quite a bit of kind of a little bit of kind of fruity character to it. Nice dark fruits in there. You can smell a little bit of the kind of raspberry sort of candied berry fruit aromas, but there's definitely, it's quite hoppy at the same time. This brewery are a very hop-headed brewery, so it's maybe going to be that a lot of their dark beers have a lot of hop character in them, so that'd be very interesting actually. But there is a definite kind of sweet roasted caramel in there, a little bit of chocolate and some roasted coffee, but the most prominent part of the aroma is most definitely that kind of fruity hop character. So very, very interesting aroma. If you do get the chance to try this beer, definitely just take a few minutes or whatever to kind of ponder over the aroma. It smells like a really, really beautiful beer, and I did notice the same. I was drinking the barley wine ale, and it was very, very fruity, very, very hoppy smelling beer. So this is the Ghost Town Porter. They call it a seriously malty porter or mysteriously malty porter, this one. So my first dark beer from the Cromarty Brewing Company, Cromarty Village, Black Isle, Highlands, Scotland. So here we go. That is very, very interesting actually. It's got a very nice kind of silky, smooth mouthfeel, and it does have quite a bit of hoppy element there. On the middle of the tongue, just as the flavour kind of fades a little bit, there's a lot of fruity character coming out in this beer. The nice dark kind of figs, raisins, raspberry flavours coming out, mixing together. It's got a nice dark element of fruit in there, and that comes out as you first take it in, but then the dark roasted coffee starts to build around the back edges of the tongue there. Very, very nice. And there's not much of the sweet caramel or chocolate coming out on this one so far, but we'll see how we get on with it. Yeah, the chocolatey character is definitely there. I think it's more of a dark chocolate than a sweet milk chocolate. And there is a good element of roasted caramel there, but there is big roasted coffee malt in there. And that, as I say, kind of spreads all the way to the kind of outer extremities at the back of the tongue. It's a really, really interesting taste, this one, because you've got this really kind of unusual, very fruity character that comes out on the mouth, or in the opening, and then it goes, the malty character just really, really builds itself up in this one. You can pick up the kind of vanilla-y, woody element that you would expect with it being barrel aged as well. You can pick up that in the aroma, and that kind of sits more towards the front of the tongue. You've got that nice oaky vanilla with it's mixing in just a little bit with the caramel in there. But as I say, a lot of roasted coffee malt that sits particularly on the back edges of the tongue. Very, very nice there. A little bit of dark chocolate in there, I would say too, and just a little bit of roasted caramel. But the main components of the flavour here is definitely that roasted coffee that just builds after you take the beer in. And you've got that really nice kind of dark fruity flavour that just comes in right away. Some nice raspberry sharpness to it there, and you've got a little bit, maybe there's a bit of raisins in there too, which gives it that little bit more of a sharpness. But then you've got the more kind of deep, juicier flavours that you would expect from kind of figs and plums and things like that. Very, very nice actually. It's a really interesting porter, this. I've said it a couple of times, but it really is. Give this guy a try if you get the chance. Even with this beer though, what I notice with Cromarty is they have this kind of little hop bite, and you can even pick up that little trademark of the Cromarty Brewery in this one. They are very, as I say, they're a very hop-headed brewery, and they do it very, very well in my opinion. It's a very well done beer, and they've still managed to do a porter that has that kind of typical kind of hop bitterness that comes out in the beer as well. You'll see what I mean when you try this. It's a lot more subtle in this dark beer than it is in their pale ales and stuff like that. But really, you will see what I mean if you try this beer for yourself. This brewery are excellent. These guys are really going places. I actually saw their beer in France when I was living in Germany. When I took my trip over to France, they were selling this beer at La Cave Boulet in Paris. And it's obviously Brewdog that are kind of distributing a lot of their beer, but it's well deserved. These guys really are one of the best Scottish craft breweries that have emerged in the last little while. But yeah, definitely has that kind of typical fruity hot bite that you expect from Cromarty Brewery. Really, really nice. I really do like this beer. I was kind of a bit unsure of what to expect with the darker beer, but we've done it very well, and it's got the typical Cromarty trait in it, which I really like, and that's kind of what's made this brewery grow on me a little bit. So in terms of the mouthfeel with this one, I would say it's mid-bodied, but at the same time it's quite unusually, it has a nice unusual lightness to it, if that makes sense. It's got a nice oily character from the hops in there, and the caramel flavour comes out just a little bit in that, but the oily character is where you pick up a lot of these nice raspberry flavours, the kind of nice kind of ready berry fruits as well. That's where it kind of all comes out, and it's got a nice sort of silky mouthfeel to it at the same time, a nice silky oily mouthfeel, and there is a good bit of bitter character from the kind of roast coffee and caramel malts there. It particularly builds as the flavour of the beer goes on. But this is a really, really nice beer. As you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, what else can I say about it? I would highly recommend that if you get the chance to try anything from Cromarty, really do it, because you're not going to be disappointed with anything that these guys are producing. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really good to do another one from Cromarty. I think this is my 4th review that I've done from them now, so I hope you're enjoying all the reviews that I've done from Cromarty, and that you're also enjoying this series of Scottish beer reviews that I've been doing for you. So as always, please comment in the section below and let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it. I'm going to go away and share the rest of this with my dad, because he likes trying all these beers that I'm reviewing for you. I hope you're still enjoying this Scottish series of beer reviews, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you tomorrow with the next series, this next installment in this series. Cheers.